Jesus heals a leper. During the first missionary journey through Galilee, they traveled on to the town of Iron. This village laid in a mining area, and since Jesus had never been in an underground mine before, he spent most of his time among the miners out of interest. While the apostles visited the community and preached in public, Jesus went down into the underground shafts with the miners. He worked with the miners for several days to experience what this work entailed. Jesus' fame as a healer had also reached this remote village, and the sick sought help from him, and many benefited from his healing ministry. However, in none of these cases did the Master perform a so-called miracle of healing, except in the case of a leper. Late in the afternoon of the third day in Iron, Jesus was walking back from the mine through a narrow side street. He passed by a dilapidated building, and in the doorway sat a leper. This sick man had heard about Jesus and knew that he was in the city. When he looked into the fearless eyes of the passerby, seeing no condemnation, he realized that this man must be Jesus. He knelt down on the street and said, "Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. I have heard the message about the kingdom, and if I were clean, I would enter it." The leper spoke this way because lepers had been forbidden to attend synagogue services for centuries. This prohibition was initially for hygienic reasons, but it made this sick man feel ostracized. Now this man believed that because of his leprosy he was also not welcome in the spiritual kingdom unless he could be healed. When Jesus saw him in his distress and heard his words of persistent faith, his human heart was moved, and his divine consciousness was stirred with compassion. When Jesus looked at him, the man fell to the ground in worship. Then the Master reached out his hand, touched him, and said, "I will. Be clean." And immediately he was healed, and the leprosy no longer afflicted him. When Jesus had helped the man up, he instructed him, "Do not tell to anyone that I healed you. But go and show yourself to the priest and offer the sacrifices Moses prescribed as proof of your healing." But this man did not act as Jesus had instructed him. Instead, he began proclaiming throughout the town that Jesus had healed his leprosy. And since everyone in town knew this pitiful sick beggar by sight, they all saw that he was cured of his disease. He did not go to the priests as Jesus had told him. Because of the news of the healing, Jesus was inundated with the sick, so he was forced to leave the village secretly the next morning. However, Jesus stayed in the vicinity for 2 more days, where he continued to teach the miners about the gospel of the kingdom. The healing of this leper was the first deliberate miracle that Jesus had intentionally performed up to that moment. The apostles moved on to another area and had a few negative experiences. They preached the good news of the kingdom, but the people there were entirely uninterested in spiritual matters. For generations, the people in this area had relied on their earthly wisdom. Nowhere else where the gospel was taught, they had encountered such general rejection on the good news of the kingdom. This greatly depressed most of the apostles, and Andrew and Abner had the greatest difficulty keeping up the spirits of their companions. Most of the apostles thought that their lack of success in these villages was due to Jesus' explicit request not to speak about him as a healer in their teaching and preaching. How they wished he would heal a leper here too, or manifest his power in some other way to draw people's attention to him. But Jesus remained unmoved by their earnest entreaties.